Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where some people think they're the center of the universe and that nobody else matters. Guys, in this episode, you'll hear a crazy story about OP's mother. She's crazy, she's controlling, she's entitled, she's narcissistic, and it still leaves me shaking my head. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the other stories as well, and do hit that subscribe button for future stories. So, a little backstory. Last December, our province was hit by a strong typhoon that destroyed several houses and infrastructures, including my previous apartment, some part of the roof. So as I was cleaning the fallen leaves and other fallen debris outside, I found this small puppy, about 2 or 3 weeks old, I think, shivering and very hungry. I took her inside my apartment and gave her a warm bath and fed her. Now, due to the typhoon, our local vet clinic was closed, so I took it upon myself to take good care of her so she can regain her strength. I then decided I would adopt her and name her Luna. Vet says she's a pit bull mix. So Luna and I moved into another apartment 2 weeks ago, and we have a pregnant lady downstairs called Sally. Last Saturday, I was jogging with Luna when Sally and her husband approaches me and asked me if I could watch their house for a few days because they're gonna go to their parents' house. Now, Luna's being fussy because she wants to go to the beach and that's where we're headed. Sally then asked, "What's your dog's name?" I said Luna. Now, I could see her face immediately change from being friendly to becoming an angry bitch. She then says to me, "You're not supposed to give dogs a human name. Change her name." She then starts screaming at me, and I said she has no right to impose anything on me. Sally then points to her tummy and says, "My daughter is gonna be named Luna. I don't want her to have the same name as your stupid dog." Now, at this point, there's people looking at us, and Luna's now barking at them. Sally then says, "Change that dog's name or I will kill her." At this point, I start yelling at her that if anything happened to Luna, that I'll sue her and I'll make sure she's jailed, and there's plenty of witnesses that can prove that she was threatening to kill my dog. She then ran, and her dumb husband, who didn't do a single thing in this situation, followed her. Now, I don't know what happened next, but I won't change Luna's name as they don't own it. And Luna's not just a dog. She's family and a very adorable companion. So yeah, that was a short post to start things off, but what a weird, horrible woman, right? And guess who's not apartment sitting for them anymore? Like, I've actually known people who are really against naming animals human names, if you can even say that. If that were me, I would have been like, okay, done. I'll just call her Sally from now on, and watch her head explode. This story takes place in Singapore. I was 14 years old when it happened. It was during chemistry when we had to go to a lab to learn about neutralization of acid and alkali. Simple stuff, really. So the class was arranged in a way that I'm sitting directly in front of this one kid. I couldn't switch because we were arranged via index number and cross-gender and a bunch of other factors. Basically, I can't change my seat. On our desks, we had a bunch of bottles containing chemicals, mainly alkalis and acids. Now, the kid I was sitting in front of was the classic I don't give a damn about schoolboy, constantly getting into trouble for talking in class, disrupting lessons, not handing in homework, etc, etc. You get the point. Everybody's had this one person in class before. So the class goes on as usual, until my teacher confronts the boy about why he's not doing the experiment. Now, it's a simple experiment. It's adding acid into alkali and seeing something happen. And the kid simply ignores my teacher. Now, I can hear my teacher getting frustrated, and he's saying things like, "Do the experiment, help your partner," as it was pair work, and "stop being lazy." To which the kid simply replies, "Go away." Now, the teacher continued to pester him to do the experiment for another good 2 minutes. Out of nowhere, the kid gets super triggered and smashed the table before swiping the bottles of chemicals, which unluckily got me splattered, in which I believe was diluted sulfuric acid. I thought I was gonna die because I could feel the acid dripping from my hair, and my hair was quite long and was able to be in contact with my back, so basically my whole back was covered in acid. My teacher immediately pulls the kid by the arm and forced him outside the lab, while the female teacher rushes me to the bathroom to wash away the acid that's probably already eating into my flesh right now. I got rinsed and had a few red burn spots on my back and got some cream from the office. The school then calls my mother, and she came and got me to take me to the doctor. Nothing fatal, really. The day after the lab lesson, I was called to the principal's office, along with the kid and his mom, my teacher, and the female teacher. My mom couldn't be there, as she couldn't take time off work. So the principal says to the mom, "According to reports from the teacher, as well as some of your son's classmates, your child splattered acid all over OP, and then had an outburst of anger in class." Hearing this, the mom replies, "So, does that seem to be a problem? Why not just ask OP to not sit in front of my son then? Now I'm thinking, excuse me? It's not like I can change my own seat. If I could, I would definitely, because I don't want to be around your son at all. The principal then goes on and says, nevertheless, your son has hurt OP and reacted aggressively against the teacher. We've concluded 5 days in-house suspension, which is basically detention from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now I was hoping for a good caning, but that works too, I guess. I could see the mom's face was red, and her son still had that whatever look on his face. We were all told to leave, while my teachers remained to do some writings on the boys' report book or something. As we got out of the office, immediately the mom slaps my face. She immediately yells, "Why did you get my son suspended?" Now, I'm a shy, quiet girl, and I never got into situations like this, so I'm just baffled, thinking of what to say. The mom smacks me again. Now, I'm about to break into tears at that point when the principal storms out of his office and loudly screams, "You two need to leave now." The mom still had the courage to scream, "It's her fault my son's in suspension." The principal was about to call security at that point, when my teachers came out to ask, "What's going on here?" The woman just screams, "This is the absolute worst discipline master I've ever seen. You've made my son receive suspension when this..." She then gets cut off, and she's quietly told, "Ma'am, you have one last chance to get off school grounds before I expel your child." Now at this, the mom says with absolute confidence, "You can't do that." At which point, 2 security guards at the school gate came up and asked what's happening. And the mom and son were escorted away, and the security guards dragged them out of school. All the while, she was screaming out unfair discipline. I was completely fine after that. The acid burns left after a few weeks. Last I heard, that boy was transferred to a private school and probably didn't even get his 5-day suspension. I heard rumors that private schools gave discipline cases based on income from the family, so he's probably gonna be hell for the students in that school because his parents are quite well off. Guys, I am shaking my head so hard at the mom right now. How dare you be an innocent victim that gets splashed with acid, causing my son to get detention? Like, that is mega entitlement that her child could do no wrong. And honestly, that woman should have been arrested for attacking OP out of anger. Like, I don't know how it is in Singapore, but I'm pretty sure slapping a friggin' minor anywhere in the world would be considered a crime. And that mom should have been charged. But I also have no idea where they draw the line though, as they still allow students to be caned in schools there. Okay, so this next story, OP tells a tale about her super entitled, narcissistic mom. So I just want to stop right here and say that OP does talk about how her mom was abusive. So just a warning for those who may get triggered listening to a post containing this type of content. With that said, if you're still with me, get ready for a wild story. Now, I don't even know where to begin. My mother is insane. I have so many stories of crazy things that she did to me or experimented on me with. So, on the way less crazy side, she used to use the "you were inside of me" card to try to justify her not giving me basic privacy. Now, I'm talking like pre-teen to late teen shaming me for telling her that I don't want her in the same bathroom as me. Just imagine seeing a teen literally pushing out their arguing mother getting screamed at for wanting to pee alone. That was me for years. She always had to be in the bathroom when I was showering, running her mouth the entire time, and occasionally ripping the curtain open to grab something random with no warning. I would get upset and be in tears, trying on the occasion to gently stand up for myself and explain that I felt uncomfortable when someone saw my naked body. When I complained, I would always get yelled at, and sometimes my mom would even cry in response while yelling, saying that she's seen me naked before, and I came out of her naked, and she changed my diapers. Living in her house, we always walked on eggshells. Sometimes we even questioned whether or not we should be breathing without her permission. Now, it wasn't just me. My father has been greatly affected by her entitlement as well. The whole story of how they came to be is really sad. Basically, they worked together, and my dad gave my mom his phone number, and she meant to throw it away, but forgot to. One day, her brothers embarrassed her, and she storms out of the house, and she starts driving around. All of her friends were busy, so she had no place to go, and she found my dad's number on the floor of her car on accident. She reluctantly called him because she had nothing else to do. My dad had a rough life. His parents divorced, and his abusive father got custody, and he remarried a witch. They had 2 kids together and made my dad move into the basement. He wasn't allowed to eat at the table with them. He was only called up to get a plate of whatever they had left over and ate it alone in the basement downstairs. He obviously got severely depressed and got into drugs. By the time my mom was with him, he was still on them, and at this point, he was getting into meth. Through all this, he's still one of the nicest, mildest people I've ever met. My mom became his world, and she was the only person he had in his life. She demanded he got off all drugs, otherwise she would leave him and he cut cold turkey. She gained complete control over him and still has it to this day. It makes me so sick. My mom has barely worked at all. She makes my dad work more than full time in a physically demanding job that's basically killing him. And then she spends every single dime of his money on ridiculous things for herself. One of these ridiculous things included giving $400 a month to the cult that she raised me in, that he's not involved with. She then stays at home, sleeps in until 12 or 2 p.m. every day, and then gets on her iPad and looks at conspiracy theories all day. She's made him do so much with her fit-throwing entitlement that we've moved 9 times because of the things she wanted. He's also done so much work on the multiple houses we've lived in, with no extra help from anybody else. Things like re-siding, putting new windows in, roofing, lots of fencing, add-ons, etc. He barely has any free time. My dad gets up at 5 a.m. for work and gets home at 5 p.m. and then has to listen to my mom nag and freak out about conspiracy theories, and then list things he needs to do. If he tries to have any input on anything, it's always shut down, and he's belittled for having his own opinion. My mom acts like the boss, and always has been. When I turned 18, I would say things got worse for me living at home. She would scream at me and telling me that being an adult doesn't give me the right to make my own decisions, as being mom still trumps all of my rights. She would still try to take away my phone even though I paid for it on my own account. She would take my bank card and force me to show her my bank account balances, and she would also force me to show her my pay stubs. She'd also open all of my mail and packages. Sometimes, she would do things like randomly steal my keys and clean my car out without me knowing, and then use it as leverage to force me to do something else for her. She would always blame me for the house being dirty, even when I have a full-time job and a part-time job and was barely ever home. Meanwhile, she's home 24/7 and refuses to clean. 2 memorable occasions of her snooping through my room and causing drama is when I went to the dermatologist and got put on birth control. It was an effort to control my painful, cystic hormonal acne that I've had forever. I didn't tell my mom, as she's super involved in the cult, which has super strict rules, including those on premarital sex. I knew she'd freak out and accuse me of that if she hears anything about birth control, so I kept it hidden for a while. Then I went to the doctor for something and got a summary of my visit printed out, which included my current medications listed. I didn't look at it, I just put it on my desk in my room. A couple of days later, I was greeted at the door with it, and screamed at and questioned why I was on birth control. Another fun thing was when she told me that God spoke to her and told her that there was something evil in the house, and how hearing God speak to her, she decided to look through my room to find the source, which ended in her finding my special effects makeup and equipment that I spent hundreds on. She said she knew these things were inviting the devil into her home, and she got rid of it all. I moved out a couple of months ago, and it's been great. Although, something recent happened. She apparently got a hold of my therapist and tried talking to her about how all of my problems are because I'm on medications now, and that's making me so reclusive. She knew I was in therapy, but she didn't know where or who or when, so I don't know how she got this info. It made me so freaking mad when my therapist informed me of her phone call. My mom also did crazy health-related things. She would force me to stare at the sun for 15 minutes a day. She told me I had cancer and started giving me weird home treatments, and then she performed an at-home surgery to remove the government microchip that was implanted in my head. She would often tell us how people are coming into our house and doing experiments in our sleep, causing her to board the house up from the inside. She often slept in a cage, and she wouldn't let me go to Walmart so I don't get kidnapped into secret underground tunnels. So that's my mom. Let me know if you want to read more and I'll gladly share. Although, I don't know if those would still be applicable to entitled parents. Guys, OP's mom definitely sounds like she's off her rocker. Like, a lot of the things she did would warrant a CPS visit 100%. And sadly, I also suspect that there might be some sort of mental issue going on there. And I hope OP's doing much better now. So OP did come back in that post and link a second post regarding her mom, so here it is. So, as you all know from my last post, my mom ran the show at home. She was the boss. It was her way or no way on everything imaginable. I figured maybe I would start with a little background, with why I wasn't close to my dad, and why we have more of a distant, awkward relationship, as well as some early childhood stuff. So basically, the cult that my mom was in teaches that they are the only good people on earth that God approves of. My mom was raised around the cult, but she wasn't indoctrinated until I was an infant. My dad studied but never progressed to baptism. So my mom was my spiritual head, as they called it, and in charge of teaching all the cult's belief systems. Anyway, I can target it to a specific day. I was probably 5 years old, and we were studying one of the books they've designed for children. I read something that said basically that anyone who isn't in our religion is gonna die, and won't be able to live with the rest of us forever. At that, I gasped and said, "So Dad won't be with us?" My mom shook her head and I went into hysterics. My little heart shattered and I was inconsolable for hours. Due to the overreactiveness of my mother, I learned to internalize my problems as a coping mechanism from a young age, and just always tried to forget about them. So from this day forward, I just accepted the fact that my dad wasn't gonna live with us forever. So I started to distance myself from him and trying to lose my care and love for him. Now it sounds super deep looking back for a 5-year-old to have this thought process. But I just remember thinking that getting close to him for a few years and having a great relationship would hurt me more when I knew that God had killed him and he would be removed from my life forever. So with that being said, I started getting really attached to my mom. She was my whole world and I was clinging onto her at all times. I believed everything she said and did. She was my parent, someone who was gonna be by my side eternally. On top of this, my dad worked more than full-time to support us both, while she was a stay-at-home mom that had the occasional, extremely part-time side job. Looking back, I can see the crazy early signs of some paranoid parenting. Things like constantly talking to me about how people wanted to take me and to never trust anybody because they can take me from her. I was an incredibly anxious child because of this. If she moved the cart halfway down the grocery aisle and I was at the beginning distracted by a box of tricks, and turned around to not see her beside me, I would begin panicking, crying my eyes out, yelling "Mom, Mom, Mom." This happened almost every grocery trip, and I was always inside and scared of everything. I told her I wouldn't go outside unless she was next to me because I was afraid someone would try to get me. They built a 6-foot fence around our property, and I still wouldn't go outside, and they asked me why, explaining the fence would keep bad people away, and I told them if someone wanted me that bad, they could climb over that fence. Even inside, I was scared to be alone, because the stories I heard my mom talk about demons growing up. Now, something I hate to admit is that I couldn't sleep in my own room until I was 15. I've always just been so scared that something or someone was gonna get me because of her. I've always been scared of her too. She's always been incredibly strict aside from entitled. In fact, she brags about this to people, how I only threw one temper tantrum as a child. We were in the McDonald's play place and I was almost 3 years old when I had my beloved bottle with me. Long story short, basic child stuff. It was time to go and I didn't want to leave and was screaming and crying. She just picked me up and we left, leaving my beloved bottle there. Of course I got beat for that, and for months, daily, she reminded me where my bottle was and how I acted so badly that I lost my favorite thing because of it. Looking back, that's horrible parenting, especially for my age. It makes me sick thinking that she tells that story any chance she can. It's probably the reason why I've never been able to place sentimental value on any object. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail of why I'm not a fan of this mom and how she treated OP, because you guys don't need to hear me ramble on for another 20 minutes. I just want to say that I hope OP lives a super happy life, nothing but sunshine and rainbows for the rest of her life. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed these crazy stories today. And I know the last story is a little bit different than the wild Karen ones, but hey, it's just as crazy. If you guys missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. A Karen demands a customer serve her, and then she learns a super painful lesson of why she should have gotten an employee. If you missed it, go check it out, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.